Welcome to the Marathon Training Series on the Mike White Podcast, where myself and Clark Blunt meet about every month and go over our training progress for a marathon in 2023. Hope y'all enjoy. All right, welcome back to the Mike White Podcast, Marathon Training. Today we got another guest, so Clark Blunt, of course, and then got good friend Erik from the boat. He is starting to train for the Jacksonville Marathon, which is also in 18 weeks. So it lined up perfectly. He made out his own plan, and we're going to take a look at it on this episode. So how you guys doing this morning?
Good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great over here too, MJ.
Good. So Clark, I sent you the training plan. Did you get a chance to look it over? And I was thinking right off the bat, well, first I'll get a little background to Erik. So when we were on the boat, he was definitely one of the most athletic guys on there, and I'm pretty confident he's kept it up. So what have you been working out before this marathon training? Like, have you done a marathon before?
No, it's actually going to be my first one. Done a couple of halves, a couple of 10Ks and stuff like that. Nothing too long, but looking forward to trying to do the marathon. It's always been a goal of mine. So I figured I need to try to step up before I get too old to start preparing now, because I want to do an Ironman eventually. So I got to do a marathon first prior to training for an Ironman. So I figure it's a good step along the way to start.
Nice. So how many miles do you think you're putting in a week so far, like this year, on average?
So at least right now I'm in the mid-30s right now, easy. So I'm working out at least 6 days a week running, and then getting some strength training exercises in there at least 3 days a week. So doing 2 lower body days a week, and then in between those two doing just an upper body to maintain.
So you definitely already have a good base, more than a lot of other people that are trying to run their first marathon. And you said before you get too old, you can't be that old. I mean, how old are you right now?
Yeah, I just turned 30 the other day, so but feeling old with my body sometimes. So trying to stay young.
No, that's still the prime years ahead of you. You're good. All right, Clark. So what did you think of this plan for Erik for his first marathon?
Erik, I like it. Did you make this yourself?
Yeah, I did, just based on research on the internet, and took a couple days to try to gauge it out and see exactly where I needed to be based on where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think this is a good starting point. I also like that it looks like on Mondays you got strength training, Tuesdays you got yoga, right? You kind of got that cycle going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I think that yoga is I think that's kind of one of those undervalued things. So I think that's really good for you. I know both MJ and I have both kind of run into problems, and it probably would have been alleviated if we just did a little bit more stretching. So keeping that in mind, that's really good. A lot of people struggle to get that done, or lack the discipline to get something like that done just because of the amount of miles. But that's really good, and I like to see that your mileage is slowly ramping up. And I think that's probably pretty good too. You could be a little bit more aggressive with your mileage going up, but really I don't see any issues there. The one thing that I would recommend is if you're just doing straight mileage, if you're just running 5.5 miles, and then you're running 4.5 the next day and then 6 the next, I would definitely recommend you varying the way that you're running. So one day make it a fartlek, or one day make it intervals, and then other days make it just kind of a day where you're going out and running. But other than that, I mean, you got good progression here, and you're getting your mileage up, especially on your longer days. I would personally I'd recommend you kind of spread it out over the week a little bit more. That way you can kind of get your base mileage in. But I mean, you got a good plan here.
Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. I forgot to include on there that my Tuesday, Thursdays are my speed work days. So doing fartleks on Tuesday, and then on Thursday is going to be kind of like a fast finish So start slow, ramp up, and then towards the end, get up to just probably, I want to say 30 seconds faster than race pace, maybe a minute, depending on how I feel that day. But definitely faster than race pace is the goal for that. But definitely Tuesday, Thursdays is my fast days. Which is the reason why I wanted to do yoga on those days as well to prepare for the next day.
Good. Yeah. That's good. I typically would do it the other way around. I typically have my hard days and then also lift. You don't want to fatigue yourself on your lifts, so you typically do your strength training on the same days you have kind of the more labor intensive, not your long run days, but your labor intensive days. But that's honestly, it doesn't really make too much of a difference as long as your strength training is really focused on stability and just making sure that your core is good, and then that you're working the muscles that you're probably lacking on whenever you're not getting those getting your mileage in.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
But yeah, that's fantastic. Tuesday, Thursday is a great schedule to have, especially when you're looking at your speed. And that Thursday sounds like a progression run. Are you kind of familiar with that term?
Not necessarily. No. What is that?
That's kind of where you start off relatively relaxed, going slower than, let's say, your race pace, and then you would gradually over the 6 miles in the upcoming week you got here, you slowly progress. So if you wanted to break it down into thirds, you'd start slower, let's say 30 seconds slower than your race pace. Then you then at your 2 miles, you bring it up to your race pace. And then for that last 2 miles, you're hitting it a little bit harder and you're going faster than race pace. So it's just kind of bringing it up. And then at the end, where you typically want to feel relatively fatigued. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you recommend doing a cool down after that, then like a 5-minute jog?
Oh yeah, I would definitely recommend, especially on those speed days. Yeah, I'd give yourself at least, if you wanted to run 3/4 to a mile, on top of that, just real relaxed, just to make sure that you're cooling down your body. I think that's a great idea. And I mean, or if you did decide to do your yoga after that, that'd be a great cool down there too.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, so I'm basically when I was making this, I read a book back in the day. It was 80-20 rule by Matt Fitzgerald, I think it was. So basically the overall encompassing the background, I guess, of the plan is the 80-20 rule. So 80-20 or 80% slow and then 20% to moderate to high intensity. So definitely as the miles increase, going to be increasing the amount of miles that I have high intensity at. So that's the only thing I'm nervous about is the mile increasing, and then how's my body going to react to the high mileage, and then putting high intensity training into there. So it's going to be kind of a different perspective and like a shell shocker to me, but I'll have to get at it and just force my body through something eventually.
And just for people not seeing the plan, I'll post a picture of the plan on Instagram if they want to see it. But it's starting off week 1 with a total of 36 miles, and it's gradually ramping up to the peak week about 3 weeks out is 70 miles. So that's all in an 18-week span.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how you put in the strength training days and put that as part of your plan. I see a lot of people just make a plan for the mileage, but I think this is good because it's going to hold you more accountable. It does seem like it is a lot of time. So running miles, you can't make it go any faster when you want to stay in your pace, stay in zone 2 for a lot of those. And then you're doing strength training on top of that. How much time do you think do you plan on making for the strength training in addition to the runs?
It's probably no more than 45 minutes to an hour. It's not going to be anything strenuous. I'm not going to go down and try to squat in 315 and stuff like that. It's going to be more for stability and just keep my overall body healthy. That's the main reason. Because in the past, when I was training for running, I seemed I regressed more when I just ran by incorporating strength training into the plans. So definitely lessons learned there that I'm just bringing forth. But I'm going to be getting off early in the morning, probably around like 5:30, 5 o'clock before work, basically, just so I can get my runs in. And then in the afternoon, when I get home from work, I have a membership at the gym down the street from us that me and my family go to. So my wife comes with me and works out.
Are you breaking up a little bit? I think we lost him. Clark, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Event. Sorry. But eventually I get to, can you hear me?
No, I think you cut out for about 30 seconds there, but I think we're back.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard?
You're talking about strength training. So you think that incorporating the strength training definitely helps maintain your progression rather than just running. And I don't know. I think you're cutting out again. Here, try just cutting out the video. Maybe if we just do audio only.
Fair enough. How about now?
Yeah, that should help the bandwidth, I think. We'll see. But
okay, cool.
Clark, I was wondering what, for strength training wise, what are some of the essential workouts that you recommend runners hit every week?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say definitely you wanna hit your triceps, you wanna hit your biceps. You also want to hit a lot of core and then a lot of stability things. So if you're working, obviously want to do your squats and hang cleans, but also want to do kind of your mobility. So either bands or have your or any sort of really poles that are kind of going across your body. So that's really what you want to do is try to work those muscles that you're not really using when you're running. Otherwise, you're going to become kind of unbalanced, and that can have a ripple effect. It's like if you rolled your ankle and your ankle is all sore and you start walking different, you're going to feel that pain in a different part of your body. So just because you try to adjust your body so that you're not putting so much pressure on that hurt ankle, the same thing is going to happen if you start to run and develop these muscles and others aren't getting developed. So it's kind of finding that balance. It's a lot of different lifts that you got there, but you definitely want to do your core. You definitely want to get your squats. You definitely want to do your hang cleans, and then anything triceps and biceps are going to help you out a lot.
That's surprising. I wouldn't think tris and bis were important at all, but is that just?
Yeah, are you kidding me? That's if your arms aren't moving, you're not moving. You gotta be moving right. You gotta be moving right across your body. Your arms are connected right to your legs.
Yeah, I can see that. Erik, are there any parts or like muscle groups that give you trouble normally, or have you had like a history of injuries at all?
Yeah, definitely my back is a huge one, causing hip instability for me throughout the various years that I've been working out. So definitely having to do a lot of foam rolling and stuff like that for recovery afterwards. But what did work for me a lot was keeping my hamstrings healthy and not tight, which helped me out with my back pain, and kind of just going over stability working out, stability exercises that Clark was talking about. That really did help me out a lot. So especially with longer miles as you're coming up, you're working out a lot of your lower legs, and I didn't know that as well for the biceps and triceps. So that's definitely new one to me. But also the hang cleans, I never considered incorporating hang cleans into my working out. So that's definitely a good one too. Is that for like kind of like the fast switch muscle fibers, or what does the hang cleans do for your running?
Yeah, that definitely helps out kind of with your explosiveness, and so it helps. Yeah, absolutely. Your fast twitch muscle fibers are deeply incorporated with that, so it gives you a little bit more explosiveness. So whenever you think about like running up your hills, it's really beneficial if you just have that little bit of strength to get you up there.
Definitely makes sense, especially for the Kings Bay area. It's not exactly, hill friendly. There's a lot of flat areas around here. The only hills that I see is basically when I'm on the treadmill doing a hill routine. So it's definitely good to know.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for
Oh
you
yeah.
to get the hill workouts in for sure. You gotta be creative there. Um, what is your
And then when
pace?
we all meet, in Boston, it's gonna be pretty critical. They got Heartbreak Hill. You have to be ready for that too.
That's right at the end, right?
Yeah, that's right at the end.
Oh gosh. Well,
Looking forward to it. Yeah, definitely. I heard Boston Marathon was definitely a hilly course, so it's definitely something to train for.
yeah, and that's Clark's goal. He's trying to qualify for the Boston on this next marathon,
Hell
and
yeah.
he's done it before, but then it was right before COVID, so they canceled it, and he didn't get to run it, so he's trying again.
Oh,
And
it's unfortunate.
I was wondering what your goal is for this Jacksonville marathon here in 18 weeks, and what kind of pace you think you would be at right now, like if you had to run a marathon right now, and what your goal is for Jacksonville.
Right now, I could definitely do around an 8:30 pace, 8:20 pace for 26 miles. That's being courteous to myself. That's depending if I'm healthy and stuff like that. So if I was 100% healthy, run a marathon, 8:30 pace for 26 miles, I believe. A half marathon that I'm going to be gauging at probably 4 weeks out. I think for my plan has it. I'm going to be trying to do a 7-minute pace right there, at least, because I want to do a 7:15 to 7:30 pace for my first marathon. I know it's a huge goal. I haven't run 26 miles yet, but I feel that if I approach my training plan seriously and my nutrition's on point and my recovery's on point, I feel that I can definitely get down to a 7:15 mile for the marathon. What about you, Mike? What do you plan on doing?
I would say I'm right there with you with goal wise, and I think that's realistic. Just hearing from other people, but the biggest thing is staying healthy. A lot of people I know that train for marathons have the most difficult part is being healthy on race day. Uh, but Clark, are we out of our minds, or is that some we have good goals there?
Yeah, I think you guys have fantastic goals. I think, Erik, it sounds like you've got a lot of discipline in kind of keeping to your schedule. So that's fantastic. I think that's what really makes kind of the average runner into a great runner. So I think if you stick on that, you work on your stability and you work on making sure that you're balanced and you're running right, I think you're in great position. And I think MJ and we talk about it all the time. It's tough to keep up with your diet. But I mean, it's running is the main thing, but I'll tell you, it's the little things that that'll get you through that finish line. So sounds like you're on a really good path there.
I appreciate that definitely. What kind of, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of shoes do you have?
Oh, oh my goodness, that is a fantastic question. So I run in the Saucony guides. I like them a lot. I actually bought about I think I bought like 10 pairs because their new generation came out and I and I was scared they were going to stop making them. So I've got a bunch of those, but I run in those, and then I've also got some Asics that I run in as well for my faster days, and then I've also got the Brook. I think it's called the Brooks Air, but I change them up whenever I go and get new shoes. I would recommend this to you, like I recommend to everybody. I would 100% recommend you go to a Luke's Locker or a Fleet Feet or wherever your running store is around you. And I would ask somebody that works there to do a gait test on you. And they're
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you if you pronate or if you supinate or if you're a neutral, and then have them recommend the correct shoe for you. And then also, I mean, run the mess out of those things while you're there in the store. You want a shoe that feels like you got nothing on. And that's really going to be the most important thing that also is correcting if you're pronating or supinating. So I would highly, highly recommend that. That's going to make your life better across the board, even outside of running. I think that's critical. And that might, if you're struggling with back problems, you might be running in the wrong shoes. So that's a fantastic question. And I recommend that to absolutely everybody.
Yeah, I definitely need to try and see if I can get my gait judged again. I did a couple years ago, but I haven't really followed up with that. Been using shoes for overpronation, so I believe that's when the ankle rolls in when you're planting.
Mhm.
So definitely I have also have flat feet too, so probably kind of one goes with the other is what I've seen, or at least did the research on. So I'm trying to correct that a little bit. I don't use insoles though because I don't want to do too much to my feet. So I mean, I use the Brooks Adrenalines. That's what I went with. I like Brooks, and especially like you were talking about running with shoes that you feel like you don't have on your feet. They're very light and you allows my feet to breathe. So I think the Brooks Adrenalines are doing pretty good.
Hey,
That's
Clark,
great. Yeah,
is
go ahead.
it change? Do people change much once they keep running? Because I know I did the gait tests way back in high school when I first started running, but you think it would be worthwhile to go back and do it again?
Oh yeah. Let's see. You don't change too much. I know that I changed from high school to college a little bit, but you don't change too much. Uh, if you are pronating, you typically pronate for the rest of your life. It does it might change in how severely you pronate, but you're probably going to do that forever. And that's just the way your foot lands. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you got flat feet, there are ways to kind of develop your arch. I know that I had ridiculously high arches when I was little, and then I ran and they ended up kind of dampening after a while. But I think it's a good practice to just make sure you're getting the right shoes.
Yeah.
Definitely. How long do your shoes last you typically? Like, do you go by miles or do you just go by wear and tear on the feet?
Let's see. I used to, I do just kind of look at the shoes once they start to wear down, because my feet roll outwards. Once the edges, I start to see the wear on there. I know it's time to replace them.
Mhm.
But I think the rule of thumb is once you start hitting about 300 miles, you're going to want new shoes. But it all depends. I don't know that you're necessarily going to feel it whenever you're going to you might feel a little bit of discomfort whenever your shoes wear down, but that's going to be so gradual that it'll be hard to tell that exact moment. So I think looking at the wear pattern is a pretty good idea. If you were running just ridiculous miles, I would I would say I would do it I would make sure I get new shoes every 6 months. But I would generally just look at the wear patterns. Once you start to see significant wear, if you're rolling in on the inside of your shoes, then that's when I would go and at least get a new pair.
Makes sense. Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. Eric, did you have any other questions for while we're on? I mean,
Um,
yeah.
definitely. I mean, I got like so many questions. That's a you opening up a gateway right there. But
Yeah, send them.
so nutrition. It's typically are you judging your macros, or are you eating just based on how you feel for the day? You just kind of like eat whatever you want to eat, or do you kind of break it down to I need this many carbs, this much protein, this many fat or grams of fat in my diet?
MJ, do you want to give your bad answer first, or do you want me
Okay,
to
yeah.
go?
Okay. This is one of my goals is to go no sugar, no grains. And Clark, very controversial, I think, but I've heard of a lot of athletes. I mean, not a lot, but some athletes that can almost train off ketosis or like be in ketosis and
Ooh,
train. So that is very enticing to me because there's a lot of reasons, but a big reason is I think sugar is linked to Alzheimer's and possibly even cancer. And I know the Alzheimer's type stuff runs in my family, so I'm trying to push that off as long as possible. And also just the way I feel. I feel like I guess if I'm training that much, you're burning all the glucose or glycogen or whatever you call it, that it's fine. But just normal day to day, when I'm running off fat feel a lot more energetic and my mind is sharper. So I follow this guy, Vinny Tortorich, online, and he's all about no sugar, no grains. So I'm gonna maximize that as much as I can. And really, I think the last like 3 weeks go pretty strict to cut out pretty much all the carbs, and so just go off a ton of protein and a ton of fat, and just get my carbs from some vegetables.
It's tough, man. I commend you for that. So good luck with that. I definitely need my sugars and carbs. I will tell you that for sure.
Well, and on race day, I will, because I think when you're that high of a heart rate for that long at running the pace we want to run, you can't do it off ketones alone. So I'm still kind of experimenting with that, whether I brought like Jolly Ranchers on my first marathon I tried, and that failed pretty miserably. Like I definitely felt like I've fell off a cliff. So I heard some people bring dates, which is just sugar, but I don't really want to do the gels because I've done the gels before and they really mess up my stomach. So I want to find something that is a good source of quick sugar, but also not like gonna make me shit my pants during mile 15. But I don't know, Clark.
I have this book I recommend, just kind of side topic. I'm reading it right now. It's called Eat to Beat Disease. It's all about like regeneration, angiogenesis, and stuff like that, just forming of new blood vessels. And it goes in there just based on your diet and how you can eat, just naturally deter cancer. So it also talks in there about Alzheimer's as well in regards to angiogenesis. So definitely recommend it to you, Mike.
Does
Eat
it
to
talk
Beat Disease.
does it talk about sugars and grains in there?
It does eventually. I haven't really got that far, to be honest. I'm about like 50 pages in, but I've definitely hit a couple of topics on Alzheimer's and just regenerations and stuff like that. But it's definitely a good read if you're trying to gauge your health a little bit better in the future.
I'll have to check it out. Might put a link in the show notes too for everyone else.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Sweet. All right, Clark, let's hear your crazy theory for nutrition.
No,
the,
man, I'm
the mainstream.
exact opposite. Exact opposite. I'm a big believer in making sure you've got carbohydrates. That's your energy source for running. So I believe you can use your body fat as an energy source, and that's fine. So I typically try to just balance my meals, try to make mine 50% carbohydrates, about 25% proteins, maybe a little bit more on the harder days, and then 25% fats. And you typically want to target those healthier fats. And it kind of sounds like that's what you're doing too. But you really want to focus on making sure you've got those carbohydrates, and those high value carbohydrates that are going to burn a little bit longer than kind of your simple carbs that are kind of like your simple sugars, like like in a candy bar or an apple or something like that. I think just making sure you're kind of balancing that. Really, what's important is that you're just getting enough calories in through the day. So I guess I'll always give MJ a hard time, as long as he's getting enough calories in. That's really what's important.
Yeah, I definitely need my carbs and sugars in me. So the way I have it gauged right now is I'm looking to eat on a normal day around 4,000 calories. And I love having my Fitbit, by the way. The Fitbit saves my life in many aspects in regards to not if I'm stressed or anything like that, how my runs went, judging my beats per minute and stuff like that. And then my overall calories. And I did that one underway. Actually, my last underway in the West B, and that really helped me out a lot. Was understanding how my body's reacting to my workouts, and then how I'm feeling afterwards. I got down to where I was able to drink the amount of water I know I needed to drink, eat what I needed to eat, and then I knew, like, I went to the bathroom at like certain points of the day where my body was on such a routine that it was like beautiful to see. It was like I knew how my body was going to react. It was crazy. I was never like that before. So
the available data we have now with all these tools at our disposal is awesome. Like you can get your pace, your heart rate, the elevation, like all this stuff. You'll be able to track everything.
And I definitely want to get to a science lab somewhere. Not like a lab, but just somewhere where I can get my VO2 max judged, so I can kind of gauge myself a little bit better as well. Because I've never had that done before. I kind of go off of what my watch just tells me, but I'm trying to get more in the zone and understand exactly how like my beats per minute during my workouts, like how am I actually working? Because perceived effort and then like your beats per minute based on your age and stuff like that are like totally two different things. And I feel that I get in a higher heart rate zone for longer, just based on like the rules of thumb out there that are given like in all the books and stuff. So like I can sit at 160 for hours and just run like that for hours. For some people, they can't. So that's like a threshold for some, and they can only sit there for maybe like an hour or something like that, based on like the research. But I could be completely wrong. What's your take on that, Clark?
I think that's great. 160 for several hours is pretty good. I you know I don't put too much stock in my VO2 max. I just I think it probably exists, and probably some people have some speculation on it. But that all it's looking at is the volume of oxygen you can get into your lungs. So I think it's good to know. I've got a watch and it tracks that for me. It's the Forerunner. I think it's 735, and it tracks my heart rate and everything. And so I have that information. I don't personally use it, but I think it can be useful if that's something you wanted to dive into.
Have you seen, so tracking your heart rate over when you're really training hard, has your resting heart rate gone down? And does that correlate with VO2 max as well?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, like so you have access on your watch to like your heart rate and VO2 max. I'm curious to see like as you trained, do you see your heart rate trend downward, and does your VO2 max change at all?
Um, so whenever I took that long gap between college, well, long gap between me qualifying for Boston, then canceling it, and then kind of starting to run seriously again. When I started running pretty seriously again, started getting back into relatively good shape, my resting heart rate dropped pretty significantly, and I believe my VO2 max. I didn't really dive into it too much, but I believe that improved. From what I've been told, is there's not a lot of changing that your VO2 max once you get into pretty good shape. It's just kind of how much oxygen can your lungs hold while you're running. Uh, but my resting heart rate did decrease, and I think my VO2 max improved while I was getting back into shape again.
Is there any, I, is it, sorry. So calculating your zones for heart rate, the typical math I hear is to estimate it, you do 180 minus your age. But to get exact, you have to like go do a test. And would that test be getting to your VO2 max, like getting to exhaustion, like you're about to pass out, and then that's your max heart rate, and then do the percentages from there? Or I don't know
Oh
if you're
yeah,
okay.
that's definitely how it would be done. You would run until you're fatigued, completely fatigued and beat, and that'd be your max heart rate. And then they base it all off of that. And that's also how you test your VO2 max as well. So that if they kind of go hand in hand.
I think that would be really beneficial too, just getting that zone two information locked in. Because when trying to stay in zone two, I'm just totally guessing like, oh, 150, 160, that sounds good. But who knows if that's really the one I need to be in.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. I think maybe I'm a little bit different. This has been kind of my career and what I had done for so long. So you kind of find that steady state where your body just feels natural and you just kind of know to go to it. But that would absolutely tell you, especially if you're trying out running and like running long distance for the first time. I think that would tell you a lot of information of where you'd want to sit, especially if you can monitor your heart rate, and maybe that also help you gauge what pace you typically be around. And so I think that'd be a great kind of starting point, especially if we're trying to figure out running.
Yeah, it'd be cool if the military paid for it. I don't know if they do, Erik.
No, so the one thing that they really offer is nutritionist on base, and then they have like a bod pod that you can get your resting metabolic rate, your actual body fat percentage, your density, and various other metrics and stuff like that. But they don't really go too in depth on what Clark was talking about.
Yeah. I'm sure you could find there's places in Jacksonville, that's a huge city, or maybe even up there in the Northeast. You can find a lab that does it. I just don't know what their rates are.
Yeah, it's not too expensive from what I've seen. I mean, it's definitely a couple of dollars out of your pocket, but it's worth it based on if you're trying to achieve your goal. Having that data is definitely, I think, good to go off of, because I think if you approach everything systematically and you get your numbers down and stuff like that, then you'll have a better baseline to kind of go off of. But a couple things that I've been doing also while I've been training here is I started a journal, just kind of going off of the day, just kind of seeing how I feel, and then kind of at the end of the day, how did I feel? How did I feel then? Kind of seeing how my body's unwinding, judging my heart rate at the end of the night, and also some meditation as well, which I really wasn't a firm believer about that a while ago, but I did start trying to control my breathing a lot more and go into how I'm breathing. So I was reading a book back in the day. It's called Breathe, just that word breathe, and it goes into, there's so many diseases out there that can be cured just based on how you breathe and the quality of breathing. So like a lot of us, 50% of us breathe through our mouths and not know about it. 90% of us are actually breathing incorrectly. So it goes into like the science and data and stuff like that, into exactly how you're breathing. So like the reason like our noses protrude from our face is because of our high protein diets over the years of like humans developing back in the day. High protein diets cause our brains to enlarge, which then cause our noses to protrude from our faces, and then it actually narrowed down our nasal passages, which causes us harder to breathe. And a lot of the stuff like our disease, like sleep apnea, is all based on how you're breathing. So meditation was definitely key for me, I feel, there, and my quality of breathing, and then getting me to relax, I guess, at the end of the night, and kind of just get to a steady state of, easing the mind, which I definitely feel helped me out a lot.
And when you say meditation, I know there's a bunch of different types. Is it like what is it, TMI, or is there a certain
Not
type of
exactly
meditation?
sure. Yeah, I honestly don't know of the different types of meditation. It's something I have to look up. I just sit there, put some music on, just sit Indian style with my back against the wall, so I'm not slouching, and kind of just go over self-talk. Get myself my thoughts clear, maintain my focus, and then just after a few minutes, I feel better.
Yeah, I don't meditate. I probably should give it a shot. But one thing I love is power naps, like 5 to 15 minutes, just laying down on the floor, putting your feet up on something. And most of the time I fall asleep, even if it's only for 5 minutes. And after that, I feel so refreshed. And it's like almost like a new day.
That's good. Yeah, that's definitely also that. I think that helps with lactic acid. That's another question I actually had for Clark, was lactic acid buildup. Is there anything, I guess, in the diet, and or is there any post-workout routines that you suggest to limit the amount of lactic acid buildup?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're eating right, if you're eating the right amount of carbs, right? If you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates, MJ, then you're good. I'm just kidding. If you have a balanced diet, I think that's critical. It's also going to help. Really, what's going to help is making sure that your heart's pumping your blood effectively, right? And you got the right nutrients in your blood to deliver that to your muscles so that they can recover. I think that's important. And then what I do and what I did in college is what I would sit on my back and then press my butt right up against the wall and have my legs up the wall. Does that make sense? So you're basically in an L. Does that make sense? Yeah, I would sit like that for 10 to 15 minutes. That way you can kind of, you're cycling that blood a little bit faster. And so that helps out a lot. Now that I'm older, I've kind of got this is like some geriatric stuff here, but I've got one of those Tempur-Pedic beds that folds up. And so I sleep in a V now, and that helps out so much. Just keeping my legs above my heart. Yeah. I would have never thought that it was something that would appeal to me, but it's been pretty good. But if you don't have that, and I wouldn't be surprised if most everybody doesn't have that, just putting your feet up against the wall helps out a lot.
That's
wild.
Interesting.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Can you send that to Mike so I can see what you're talking about for the bed setup that you're talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny because after I graduated college, I didn't have any money to my name, and I remember I slept on the floor for a couple of months in just a sleeping bag, and then I finally got enough money that I felt comfortable, and then I bought my first bed for like $100 for the bed frame and the mattress, and I slept on that for about 3 years. And then whenever I moved to Nevada, I said, screw it, I'm going to buy something nice. And I put as much money as I could into a bed, and that was the best investment I ever made. But yeah, I've no problem sending that over to MJ.
Does it like automatically go into a V and then you could like go back easily flat?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've got it set as my favorite for the position that I prefer.
Hell yeah.
That's crazy. What about ice baths for lactic acid? Is there any science there? I know I feel good when I take an ice bath.
I don't know. I struggle with those. I did them through college because I was told they did something. I never felt like they were the answer, but I think there has to be something to them, just because everybody's so strongly in their corner. But if anything, if absolutely nothing else, I think those things make you tough as nails. I remember I'd sit in them, and then I remember I'd be in workouts and I'd be like, at least it's not as bad as sitting in that ice bath. So I think you get the benefit there, and if it is actually helping recover better, then you got that as well.
Yeah. All right, Erik. Any other questions you got?
Off the top of my head right now, I might have a couple over here in the next couple of weeks. So I guess it'd be a follow-up podcast or something like that. I know we kind of agreed to be the accountability buddy for one another, so it's definitely cool that we're gonna keep each other accountable as we are going on our marathon plans. So I'll probably ask a question or two later if you don't mind.
No, yeah, definitely, for sure. I'm muting you, Clark. No. Wait, you're back. Okay. Yeah, I think Clark's dog's going wild, but I think that's huge of having the accountability partner there to hold yourself, on track and making sure you do it right. That's why Clark and I started this thing. We were doing it. We were doing a podcast every week, and then we shifted every month, but still just checking in and making sure that we're staying on the path. So thanks for reaching out and bringing all these good questions. It's good to, I know we've covered these before, but it's always good to brush up on it, and it's a good reminder. Clark, you got any final thoughts before we close it out?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to bring it right back to that conversation. Hey, Erik, how do you feel your stride is? You think how would you describe your stride?
I feel it's a lot closer than it should be. Because of my back pain, I developed bad form throughout the years, and I don't feel I'm pushing back as much as I should be. So I definitely have a closer stride than I want.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to get the right stride, but I would definitely recommend looking out some of those further stability exercises. There's a lot of them out there, and then just kind of figuring out what your stride should be, and that might take you asking a friend to just record you and see what that looks like, and where you're at, and then trying to figure out kind of where your foot should be hitting on the ground, and what that should look like, and how high your knee should be coming off the ground, and what that should feel like, and just kind of figuring out what that stride should be, or what's most optimal, right? I think you can be successful with whatever stride, but there's the most optimal way to do it, and that's going to help out. And I think that's kind of one of those fundamental things that a lot of people, if they don't do it right, kind of whenever they're starting to figure out how to run, it's going to lead to a lot of problems later on down the road. That's where people can get really bad knee problems, have really severe back issues. So if you're running it right, and it sounds like you've been running a lot of miles, and it sounds like you're still enjoying it, so you probably do have a pretty good stride, but there's always opportunity to improve it. So if you have a chance, have somebody record you just doing real casual run by, and then doing kind of like a stride to just open up and see what that looks like. I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, it's a good recommendation. I never done that before.
Oh yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss. That's why I was excited whenever you asked about the shoes. So if you went to like a Luke's Locker or a Fleet Feet or wherever your local shoe store is, I think that would help out a lot if you could just ask them to see what it looked like.
You said Luke's Locker, you said?
Yeah, Luke's Locker. Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't. I usually just go to First Place Sports down in Jacksonville, is the place, but Luke's Locker, I'll have to look one of them up and see if there are any local near me.
I think
yeah, absolutely.
if I remember First Place, it's pretty much the same thing if there's not a Luke. So that's that type of dedicated running store. I know in Dallas growing up, it was Run On we would go to a lot. But there's usually one in every big city at least. Well, guys, super thankful and excited that you guys are running the marathon, and it's going to be awesome to keep track along the way, see our stats. And I mean, I think as long as we stay healthy, it's going to be a good 18 plus weeks. Clark, you still need to figure out what marathon you're running, right? Do you know yet?
Yeah, no, not yet.
All right. Well, for us, we got 18 weeks, and we'll be getting after it. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
See you. Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.